Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Joey Francess, your life, love, and relationship coach. Thank you so much for joining me. Should I stay in this relationship or should I leave? It's about that quiet, heavy question so many people carry around, sometimes for months, if not even years. And I'm sure we've heard similar stories to that. It's something that shows up while you're brushing your teeth, when you're lying next to someone who has no idea you're even thinking about leaving. A moment during the workday where certain thoughts just flood your brain. And see, the hardest part, no one else can make this decision for you. Not your friends, not your family, not your therapist, not your parents, not even me. Even though we ask them repeatedly and even try to get them to validate what we're thinking and our decisions. But hopefully I can help you ask the right questions. The ones that cut through the emotional fog. The ones that help you stop bargaining with your own unhappiness. The ones that bring you back to yourself. See, this decision, whether to stay or leave, is one of the loneliest things you'll ever carry. You could be lying to someone every night, sharing meals, sharing routines, and still feel completely alone. They might have no idea that you're even questioning the relationship. And that makes it heavier. Because you're not just deciding what's next, you're holding the weight of what's unsaid. Now, I've said it a billion times, and I will say it a billion more, how important communication is and how important it is to be open and honest and transparent with somebody. And it's in these situations where it's probably the hardest to do those things. Historically, this decision used to be easier, not emotionally, but structurally. See, and when I say easier, I don't mean like easier to leave. It's quite the opposite. Because religion said you couldn't leave. Society said that if you did, you would be shamed. And people would look down on you, including like losing your friends and if not family. And then even psychologists would say that your kids would be permanently damaged. But now, religion doesn't terrify you into staying anymore. Society, for the most part, doesn't even care, what you do. And psychologists will actually tell you the opposite, where it's better for kids to grow up with two loving parents who show each other respect than in a home where there is no love and there's lots of tension. And essentially you're teaching your kids that, as opposed to that even if something doesn't work out, that you should still love and respect that person. So the burden falls on you. And that's where the existential loneliness really kicks in, because it's not about the rules. It's about how you feel, and feelings, they shift. They contradict themselves, and they don't always make sense. You're left trying to make a life-altering decision based on something that changes depending on how much slept you got, what movie you watched, what your friends are saying or posting, other social media influences that you see talking about breakups and glow-ups and things of that nature. It's confusing. It's isolating. But at the end of the day, it's unfortunately real. And when you're stuck in the should I stay or should I leave loop, logic starts slipping. You feel everything and understand nothing. And this is essentially what I recommend. Not to give you the answer, but to help you figure out your own answer. Now, I've, again, if something doesn't necessarily make you happy, that I say that you should walk away. And I've said that a lot. But just for some context, the majority of time when I'm talking about those specific times and things, it's within dating, not necessarily talking about relationships, because you've obviously got here. How did you get here? You obviously found somebody, this person you like or love, and you've spent a lot of time with and learned and grew with, and then something changed. Something's different now, right? And obviously what I'm talking about here are people that are in the tough situations of, I don't know, should I, shouldn't I, not in the type of relationships that are abusive, whether physically or verbally, or those who are with, I forgot to silence my phone, those who are with people who are like narcissists, for instance, because then the answer is easy. Just walk away. And I say this because those types of situations are more hurtful. Your well-being is on the line. Whereas the tougher decisions, it's, something that you just kind of have to figure out on your own. So here's some questions that I've asked clients in the past. Questions that don't necessarily provide you with comfort, but they might give you some clarity and help you figure out whether you should stay or go. How much of your unhappiness is tightly connected to this partner? And how much of it might be the reality of living closely with any human being? Is it specifically something they do? Or is it just certain pet peeves you have, being close to someone or in the same proximity as someone, and, they just annoy you at times? Because it does happen. What part of the tension might you be contributing? Even if it's just a small part, be honest with yourself. Are you a little hard to be around sometimes? Think about it. Do you like your job? Do you come home from work feeling shitty or annoyed? Do you project that onto other people? And this is where you really have to be honest with yourself when thinking about and answering these specific questions. What annoying traits from past partners does this one not have? And what do you actually appreciate about them, but forget to notice? Or what has changed and you stop noticing these things? Because life does become mundane. And then we start to focus on, work and maybe kids and pets and friends and vacations and making dentist appointments and et cetera, that sometimes we forget the little things that brought us here in the first place. And maybe we forget to appreciating them. And then because we don't appreciate it, it's much easier to get angry or upset with somebody. What do you manage not to fight about? Because peace isn't about what's just loud. It's also what's quiet. And again, because you live with someone so long, or you become used to having someone around you in your vicinity, whatever the case is, you again forget about the good things that brought the two of you together. Are you projecting fantasies onto someone new without knowing their flaws? That crush, that coworker, the stranger on Instagram. Would they really be better? Or are they just different? Is the grass really greener? And because I say this, because we do get caught up in social media, and you guys know, I've said it a lot, that I like what social media has done for the world. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me. There are obviously people that misuse tools. It happens. And part of it is us also getting sucked in to fantasies. I mean, in reality, it's no different than watching a romantic comedy movie and then wishing that we were the main character. The only difference is that it's on Instagram, and maybe because it's on Instagram, and maybe it's because it's made by a random person, you know, it's not a big production, it's not nobody famous. We can attach reality to it. We can assume that what's happening there is real, whether it is or it isn't, sort of irrelevant, because in our head, we make it real. And it's the same thing with people that get caught up watching movies and things of that nature, where they think, you know, this is how life should be or can be or will be. And it doesn't, you know, very rarely does life happen like the movies. Are you idealizing single life based on social media without seeing the reality? And then ask yourself, how many emotionally available, intelligent, and grounded people do you think are really out there? And how many are just good at telling you what you want to hear? Now, me being single and being, I guess, in the dating pool and talking to people that are also single in the dating pool, if you ask them, they're going to tell you that there aren't a lot of emotionally available, intelligent, and grounded people out there, that it is a rarity. I mean, if you ask me, I can't really give you that answer, because I'd like to think that there are more than people imagine. It's just that maybe we don't find out because we don't like them for other reasons. They're not attractive to us. Maybe they speak a different language. Maybe their morals or values are slightly different, whatever the case is. Because finding somebody to be with is an extremely complicated endeavor. So, have you had a calm conversation with your partner without accusation? Just the sadness, just the honesty, just the how do I feel? And this is me again harping back to communication, that, you know, you might be living with someone. And I know that there's a number of people that go through this in their life, where they're in a relationship, living with someone, potentially married to them, and still feel alone. Have somebody in the house, still feel alone. I even have a name for this. I call it, like, you know, having a roommate, essentially, because that's all that it is. You know, there's no bond. It's just another human being living in the same house as you. So have you taken the initiative to say, hey, listen, you know what? I'm feeling a certain way. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling that. I think it's because of XYZ, or I don't know why I'm feeling this. Things aren't the same as they used to be. And just having a real conversation with your partner and trying to figure out, you know, where things took a left turn, and maybe repairing the relationship as opposed to walking away. Because see, the thing is, are you ready to exchange a familiar kind of unhappiness for a new, more complex one? Because leaving doesn't guarantee joy. All that it does is guarantee change. Now, I am somebody who likes to say a lot that staying in something that's toxic, that's hurting you, is, I mean, it's ridiculous. You shouldn't obviously do it. And a lot of people do stay out of fear of being alone, fear of loneliness, fear of the unknown. And I don't necessarily say that, you know, being single, getting back out there is going to make life happier, because it might not. But But the question is, how do you feel right now? Are you happy right now? Because if you're not happy right now, and again, you're in something that's toxic and something that you think cannot be repaired, and you're with someone and feel lonely, which is the worst kind of loneliness, then maybe the unknown, as scary as it might be even that much better. Again, you have to sort of like weigh out your decisions here. Because at the end of the day, are you choosing hope or repeating experiences? See, this isn't about staying or leaving. It's about getting honest. And honesty is the only thing that will provide you with clarity to help you move in whichever direction you choose. And honestly, I would love for you, if you're in this type of situation, to sit down and reflect and contemplate and answer these questions for yourself and be as honest with yourself as you possibly can. Because at the end of the day, that's the only way you will get to viable, useful answers. See, sometimes the confusion isn't coming from the relationship. It's coming from everything else around it. How much sleep you've had, how long it's been since you felt desired, what stories you've been consuming, conscious about it or not. Like, for instance, you may watch a movie where the couple has wild chemistry and perfect communication. Or you scroll past a breakup post where someone's glowing and traveling and thriving and so excited for life again. Or you hear, somebody else on social media or even a friend that says, you know what, I left and it was the greatest decision of my life. And now suddenly all of us, your relationship feels broken. It might not be, but because of all the other things that are happening, it might just be tired. It might just be quiet. It might just have become mundane, in a matter of speaking. Not necessarily bad, but because you have all these other outside influences affecting you, you need to point the finger at somebody. And a lot of times, who's it going to be? The person that we spend a lot of time with, the person that is the biggest influence in our life, perhaps. And that's the reason why I feel this way. That's the reason why these things are bothering me. It's because of this person. And I can't stand that because accountability is so important. This is where you need to point the finger. We are surrounded by noise. And that noise can make us question something that we've never had a problem to begin with. So before you decide anything, you need to truly ask yourself, is this my truth? Or is it someone else's story that I've absorbed, that I've imagined myself being the main character in? Now, I'm going to tell a story. This is about a person, a client of mine. And even though it has nothing to do with a relationship, so to speak, it's how that outside influence has affected her. Because she is somebody that does like to take in, the influencers and watch those other dating gurus and experts and relationship experts, and comes across a lot of this stuff on social media. So one day we were talking and she's telling me, now when it comes to dating, this is what she expects. This is what she wants. And as somebody who has spent months talking to her and getting to know her and understanding her, everything that she was saying to me was not her whatsoever. And interesting enough, I brought it to her attention. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm like, you were never this type of person. Like, what changed? Where did you come up with all this stuff? And I mean, it's valid that people can change their views on things. I mean, if you're dating long enough and being disappointed, you might think to yourself, hey, maybe it's me. Maybe I need to change my thinking. Maybe I need to ask for more, or, look in a different place. Maybe try dating different guys or different types of guys than what I'm used to or what I like. Maybe I need to, explore the types of people that are out there that I wouldn't normally give a chance to. Fair. But again, I asked her, I'm like, where did this all come from? Trying to figure out like what really brought this change on. And she said to me straight out, oh, I've been watching a lot of these other like dating influencers and things of that nature. And, some person said that for me to show my worth, I got to demand more or this or that or that or the other. And I started thinking, I'm like, yeah, but that's so not you. Like, you're not even, like, the thing is, if you were to go out with someone even acting this way, chances are you're just going to revert back to being yourself again. Because if it's one thing, we are who we are. We can try to be other people, but the real us will always come back out, always. That is why change is so hard. That's why we can't necessarily fake it. Fake it till you make it. That's bullshit. Well, in this scenario, at least. And so she took a couple days to think about it. And funny enough, she came back and she said to me, you're so right. You are so right. I was not being myself. I was being influenced by these other people. What they said sounded great. Them saying like, hey, if you do this, you'll get that. If you do that, you'll get this. And it confused her. It confused her based on who she was and what she truly wanted. Because all of a sudden, these types of people are now telling her what she should want. Not what she wants truly, but what she should want based on their opinions and their ideas and their life and the things that they've seen. And I hope, like, even me as being a person in this space, an influencer of sorts when it comes to dating and relationships, that I'm not that person. That I don't tell you what you should want, aside from being happy and being satisfied with the person you choose and wanting people for the right reasons. Because aside from that, what you want is for you to decide. And I always say that you should just be who you are. Be honest, be yourself, be authentic. I'm sure I've said that a bunch of times throughout these podcasts. And in this case, she wasn't. She was influenced because of what other people were telling her what she should want. And honestly, that's going to happen to those who even have the slightest doubt in their relationship. If they start watching these people are going to almost poison the relationship to a certain degree, because they're going to tell you, this is what you want. This is how you get it. And it could be nothing like you whatsoever. But yet you go and do it anyways. And then you might ruin something. And if you go and look, because the algorithm, it's a fantastic, wonderful thing that loves to show us the stuff that we like to watch or the stuff that we're attracted to. But if you go look, there's a ton of other videos out there of regular people breaking up with their partners or their spouses or whatever the case is, and then regretting it. I left a good person. I was influenced by XYZ and now I'm single and I hate it because I left a good person. There's that saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. We have no idea of what we have until we lose it. Well, why don't you take a minute and think about what you have before you lose it? It doesn't take much. Asking yourself these questions, thinking about it. Now, let's talk about sex. What a transition. And not the fantasy version, Not the, puppy love, we just started dating version. The real version after, a couple years of dating or being together, after routine, after stress, after life, after priorities. Most people think if the sex isn't spontaneous, passionate, and frequent, something's wrong. And in a matter of speaking, they're right. But here's the truth. Sex changes, desires shift, and long-term intimacy doesn't look like a movie. It looks like effort. It looks like communication. It looks like choosing each other even when it's not that easy. And I know there's people out there that use sex as a reason to leave. And I believe that is the biggest load of bullshit ever. See, lack of sex, lack of intimacy, so to speak, is not because of compatibility or because physically, we like different things, because obviously we were doing it to get to this point of being together for a couple of years. The lack of sex and lack of intimacy is a symptom to the problem. That problem could be a breakdown in communication. That problem could be people changing and treating each other differently. There's millions of reasons why two people stop having sex. And I mean, you can boil it down to, I don't want to be intimate with this person anymore because of whatever reason. And see, that's what you really have to think about. That's what you really have to focus on. How did we get here? Why did we get here? Because if you're using sex as the reason to leave, you need to stop yourself and ask, is this about desire or is this about resentment? Is this about chemistry or is this about emotional distance? Is this about them or is this about how I or you've been showing up? Because sex isn't the measure of love. Effort is. And we really have to look at ourselves. When we're asking ourselves this question, whether to stay or whether to go, what's leaving really going to look like? Essentially peeking over the fence to see if the grass is actually greener. Because we might leave and feel free. We might leave and feel regret. We might leave and then realize that maybe it was us that was avoiding growth or avoiding having the conversations. Maybe it was us that was causing the problem because of our silence, because of our inability to speak up. Because again, leaving doesn't guarantee happiness. It only guarantees change. And you really need to think about this. Are you sure that this is the wrong person for you? Are you sure that this isn't something that's going on with you that's existential and you're just blaming your partner? And are you sure that this is what you want? Because change, even when change is necessary, can come with grief, with confusion, with new problems that you haven't even thought of or haven't even met with or haven't seen in a very, very long time. So again, you have to ask yourself, are you ready to exchange a familiar kind of unhappiness for a more complex one? Because that's what often leaving is. It's not a solution, it's just a shift. We need to fix what's wrong with inside ourselves. And here's the thing. If the person that you're with isn't for you, then they're not for you. And then all of this stuff becomes easier to figure out. See, what I'm talking about here is not when it's easy to figure out. This is when it's difficult to figure out. And I know there's some people out there that are in relationships that they know they don't belong in, but stay in them because the person looks good on paper. because I had lots of bad relationships and I was treated like shit. And this person treats me well, but the attraction and the chemistry isn't there for me. But because they do treat me well and, he or she looks good on paper, I'm just going to stay anyways. Yeah, that's not happiness. That's not going to get you where you want to be. I guess asking yourself these questions will help you figure that out. And if you're just leaving to escape discomfort, well, you'll find it again. You'll just find it in a different body, in a different dynamic, in a different version of the same pattern. Because leaving isn't a fix. It's a fork in the road. And when you get to that fork, you need to ask yourself, what am I hoping will magically disappear if I leave? And what might follow me anyways? Again, coming up with these answers, being honest with yourself will help you obviously direct what's important to you and where you're going to go. And I'm going to bring it up again. Before you make any decision, before you stay or before you leave, at least have one more conversation with your partner. Not a fight, not a list of accusations, just a moment of truth. Sit down with the partner and say, listen, I am sad. I am confused. I don't know what to do, but I want to be honest. No blame, no defense, just honesty. And if they shut you down, that's data. That's something for you to take in and think about it. If they lean in and listen to you, that's data. If they deflect, minimize, or change the subject, that's data. These are all things to help you come to your decision. Because clarity doesn't always come from answers. Sometimes it comes from how someone handles your vulnerability. And since episode number 1, I've put a massive importance on being vulnerable with people and how important it is that if we want a long-lasting, loving relationship, we need to be vulnerable with people. But that also means that people need to be vulnerable with us. And that also means that we both need to respect each other's vulnerabilities. And if you've never had that kind of conversation, I don't think you actually know what the relationship is capable of. So, should you stay or should you leave? I don't know. And honestly, you might not know either. Not yet, at least. But here's what I do know. You are strong enough to ask the hard questions, to sit in the discomfort, to stop outsourcing your peace, to stop bargaining with your unhappiness. You don't need a perfect answer. You need an honest one. One that's not based on fear, not based on fantasy, only based on truth. Your truth and your partner's truth. And whatever you choose, whether you stay or whether you go, do it with your eyes open. Do it with your voice intact. Do it with your standards raised. Because you do deserve a relationship that feels like clarity, not confusion. Like peace, not performance. Like truth, not tension. And I hope that this episode has helped you think more clearly about what you're going through, if you're going through something. And if you haven't been going through something, I'd honestly love it if you could potentially share it with somebody that you think might benefit from hearing this. Someone who's stuck in a loop, someone who needs permission to get honest, someone who wants to go deeper and to figure this out before they make a decision that could alter the course of their reality for the rest of their lives, in a bad or a good way, for that matter. we have to remember, getting into a long-term relationship, finding somebody and being with them for a year or 2 years, whatever the case is. It's not easy. And I mean, I've said it before, it's not necessarily difficult, right? It's more tedious than anything, going on dates, learning about people, going through the motions. But spending that much time with someone, learning about them, loving them, doing things for them doing things for you, even the littlest things. Obviously, we enjoyed it, we liked it, we loved it. And if you're in a position where you were dating someone for the right reasons, and they are a good human being, and something changed, something's different now, can't put your finger on it, try to figure it out. Use the questions that I gave you. Sit them down and talk to them about it. See if they're feeling the same way but are too scared to voice their opinions. Maybe it's mutual. Maybe this is the kick in the ass that you've two needed and can get back to the way things were, or even better for that matter. Maybe even seek out couples therapy and, things of that nature. And do it together. Because, again, finding somebody that you truly care about and truly want to live for, and vice versa, that person wanting to live for you, it's very, very tedious. And we might not get a lot of choices in life when it comes to finding someone like that. I've said it, a lot of times, that if you're not in a good place and you're not with somebody that you love or like, or whatever the case is, that you just walk away. They're not for you. They're not for you. The puzzle pieces, right? But this is beyond that. This is somebody that you've had around for a very long time. And I do understand that social media does influence people to break up and show you this incredible life of being single where you can and do whatever it is that you want. But remember that when you start doing that, the person you used to be most excited to tell when something fun or amazing happened, the person that you wouldn't necessarily turn to when shit hit the fan and they would provide you with some comfort, they're not going to be there anymore. So, do you want to do whatever you want, or do you want to have that comfort and somebody with you and potentially still do whatever you want, depending on what you want to do is? Again, just things to think about before you make a rash decision based on things you see online, based on movies and things of that nature. Okay, I think I've talked to you enough this week. So once again, thank you so much for listening, especially if you made it to this part of the episode. If you want to send me a message, get into contact with me, or learn about things like my books for sale, including one that's called The Logic of Me, a guided journal for self-discovery, because the better we know ourselves, the better we can choose a partner. You can go to my website. That's joeyfrances.com, joeyfrances.com. And there, obviously, you can send me a message and buy my books. It'll send you to the Amazon links, the audiobooks, and find this podcast if you just stumbled upon a short or something like that. Anyways, this week, I'm going to tell you this. Stay honest. Stay brave. And remember, clarity isn't always comfortable, but it's always worth it. Till next time.